welcome all you ghosts and ghoulies to Conjuring Canvases, the show where spooky art is created and terrifying tales are told. My name is Lern the Conjurer, and I am your host. Our show is inspired by Robert Welsh's Ghost Stories and Makeup Mondays. Go ahead and check out the link description down below to go ahead and find his awesome channel. Today's episode is coming out the day before Halloween! It's the most spookiest time of year! And I am so excited to be doing this episode. I wanted to point out a couple of things before we get started. The first thing you might notice is that the backdrop is looking a little different than usual. That's because since it is Halloween, I thought I would go ahead and show you all some of my favorite Halloween decorations and how I like to decor up my home. Realistically, my house looks like this all year long, but you know, 'tis the season, right? We do have all of the other previous paintings that I've done in previous episodes in the background. If you don't know what these episodes were from, feel free to check out the playlist Conjuring Canvases, and I'll make sure that link is down below as well. Finally, because it is the Halloween season, I decided what better way to celebrate than paint my rendition of a jack-o'-lantern face. A couple of interesting twists. Gonna be super fun. I'm really excited. You want to make one announcement before the episode gets started. It's actually really fun, but slightly bittersweet news. I love this series so much, I want to make sure that it continues to stay special and fresh for everyone. So I've decided that Conjuring Canvases after the month of October will go down to only one episode a month. This is so I can do extra research on some fun new paranormal phenomenons and entities that maybe people haven't heard of before. It's also so that I can guarantee that you'll have better quality in each and every single episode. You'll be wondering, but Lern, what are we gonna do the entire month with only one episode of Conjuring Canvases? I know. I thought of you. I got you, fam. What we're going to do in between everything is I'm going to be still producing videos on my channel. Videos are gonna range, but they're all gonna be around spooky topics and spooky fun. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and also hitting that notification bell. That way, you'll be able to be notified every time a new video of mine comes out. These videos will be fun crafts. Sometimes they might have to do with us going to a real spooky and haunted place. And just overall, some really fun stuff. So I'm really excited, and I hope that you all enjoy and continue to stay engaged with us and in my channel. Today's spooky shout out is going to each and every single one of you. Guys, my October goal was to just get to 30 subscribers. I think I'm literally right at 29. Right there. I just want to thank you for subscribing to my channel and actually being engaged and really liking what I'm doing. You've all been wonderful and awesome. And if you want to help me reach my goal of 30 subscribers by the end of October, feel free to go ahead and share my channel with maybe someone you think might enjoy it. Spooky shout out to you, my favorite ghosts and ghoulies. Now you might be wondering, well, Lern, where's Zed the Ghoul? Through Halloween tradition, I sent Zed out to go trick-or-treating. After all, you've seen how much he loves candy, right? It would be a crime if I kept him indoors throughout this entire time. He made sure to tell me to tell you that he expects to see more spooky stories in our inbox. If you have a creepy tale and you want to share it with us, be sure to email us at conjuringcanvases@gmail.com or leave it below in the comments. If you'd like to support the show, we do have an Etsy store, so feel free to go ahead and log in onto that to see all of our paintings that we've previously done, as well as some additional fun, creepy oddities that I have made. Let's get the paints laid out and let's talk about the best holiday out of the year. Yeah, I said it. Let's talk about Halloween. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get started by actually outlining what I'm doing with the jack-o'-lantern face. I decided that normally, you know how I outline these things beforehand so that you guys can see it? I figured in this episode I wouldn't do that because one, the painting itself is pretty simple, but the techniques that I'm gonna be adding into it are going to be the things that are the most time consuming. So I thought, let's go ahead and build this from scratch, shall we, everybody? If you're like me, ghosties and ghoulies, not only is Halloween your favorite holiday of the year, because let's be honest right now, it's a perfect holiday. You get to dress up as your favorite character or something that you really love. You get candy. You get to decorate your house in all these cool jack-o'-lanterns and candles and spooky shit. And you don't have to have awkward family gatherings. Just admit it, everybody. Halloween is the most perfect holiday, and if you disagree with me, feel free to leave it in the comments so we can fight. I'm just kidding. I don't want to fight with you. The ghosts will do it for me. So like I said, I think it's an awesome holiday, but if you're like me, you've probably realized that there's a very long history to Halloween. Halloween actually was never always known as that word. As a matter of fact, the word Halloween came from the Catholics, of all people. I was actually born and raised Catholic. I know, let that sink in. I was born and raised Catholic. And the thing is when I was a child, we were allowed to celebrate Halloween, unlike most of my other friends who belong to different Christianity religions. You see, I remember asking in Sunday school, I asked, why are we allowed to celebrate Halloween? And I was told by the priests that were at my church that the Catholics were celebrating Halloween because they believed it was the time of year to not only say goodbye to the souls that they've lost in the year, but also to dress up as scary beings to scare away the even scarier beings that lay beyond the grave. As I get older, I realize that that's not entirely true, but I admire that reasoning. So in the center, you know how jack-o'-lanterns, they've got all different types of faces? I decided what I wanted to do was in the center. I'm gonna see how this turns out. I might hate it. And you know what? If I hate it, I only have myself to blame, but it's Halloween, so everything makes me happy right now. But in the center with my jack-o'-lantern's nose, I want it to be a bat. That might not be obvious right now, and it may not be obvious when we actually paint, but I'm gonna try. Depending upon how you were raised or what your family believed in, you might have been told different things about why we celebrate Halloween, but the origins of Halloween do go back a long, long time. For instance, you might know about the Celtic holiday called Samhain. If you've ever seen a word that looks like Samhain, it's actually pronounced Samhain. Now, the history of Halloween goes back forever and ever and ever, and I feel like if I wanted to, I could make this episode 8 hours long. You ain't here for an 8-hour-long video. I already know that some of you are like, Lern, your videos are 45 minutes long. Can you make them a little shorter? So, I'm not gonna do that to you. Aren't I nice? Trick or treat, there you go. So what I thought was I would take the history of Halloween and kind of break it down into some fun origin facts that maybe you didn't know about. I'm wanting to actually make the entirety of the canvas black, so it's kind of like a silhouette of a jack-o'-lantern smiling. And on the inside, it'll have the flaming oranges and reds and yellows, but the whole thing I want to be black. Now, you're probably like, well, that's kind of a really simple painting. And you know, listen, I like simple too. Sometimes I'm not going to want to go full-on Picasso or full-on Van Gogh, right? But actually, I'm really excited because when we get into stories, I'm gonna implement a brand new technique that I've never done before. We're gonna see how this goes. So Halloween, as we know it today, is basically a cultural mashup of all different types of fall festivals. Now, of course, like I said before, Samhain is the biggest one that everyone references to. First done by the Celts, a lot of people say that, of course, Wiccans and pagans do follow the traditions of Samhain. Now, the traditions of Samhain as well are ones that we currently see today. It's just packaged a little bit differently than what we're used to. So you have celebrations such as All Saints' Day, which is Catholics' way of celebrating Halloween. It's actually the day after Halloween, so November 1st. There was also the ancient Romans. They decided to take Samhain and change it into a festival called Barricelli, I believe is how it's pronounced. So there you go, that's the thing. I love it, it's so cute.
Hi, hello, come and get some candy.
I freaking love Halloween. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna say that 20,000 times in this episode. Now, Samhain marked the end of the harvest season. Basically, it was kind of a way to say the earth is dying. Everything went from green to brown, and so the earth is now having a moment where it's just like, I want to go to sleep and I want to be reborn. So Samhain was a part of that celebration. But it also had to do with the barriers between the living and the dead, and hence the spirit world was the thinnest on Halloween. Now, I mentioned the tradition of Barricelli before by the ancient Romans. Ferralia was the fall celebration that they took from the Celts, where instead of it being like, oh, the world's dying and the spirit realm is the most active and thinnest now, how they treated it was, yes, it is a fall celebration. It was a celebration to honor their goddess Pomona, who was the goddess of fruits and trees. Then you move to All Saints' Day, which again is on November 1st. All Saints' Day is a holiday that was started by the Catholics, where they would honor their dead or the people who passed on in that year who haven't quite made it to heaven yet, because apparently it takes some time. I hope that they have party hats in heaven. I hope they celebrate Halloween in heaven. I think everyone should celebrate Halloween. Halloween as we know it today is a holiday where, of course, you get to celebrate by dressing up in costumes. Now, today, there's all sorts of things that you can dress up as, right? There's a costume for literally everything. And I do mean everything. Now, to couple with Samhain's tradition of dressing as a way to disguise the spirits, what they would also do is even if they were staying at home, what they would do is they would leave a bowl of food outside their doors to keep their home safe so that the spirits would be happy and appeased and wouldn't do anything to trick them or haunt them, which I thought was really cool. I think that may very well be where trick-or-treating actually derived from. There's another theory as to where trick-or-treating came from, which I think is also pretty strong too, but I definitely think that one is the predecessor for why we have trick-or-treating for children who are dressed up in costumes. You ever know somebody who went trick-or-treating and didn't even wear a costume? Like, have you ever done that? Like, you open your door and there's somebody there and they have like a sack ready to have candy and they're just wearing regular clothes. Bastards. No, you can't have Laffy Taffy. Put on a freaking mask. I can tell you that I very proudly went trick-or-treating up until I was 15 years old. I did not care. Until finally people were like, you can't have candy, you're not a child. Now, appropriate to what we're painting and also what's behind me is the jack-o'-lantern. Where did that come from? Well, there's actually an old Celtic tale about a man named Jack who was known to trick the devil. Well, finally, when he died, it said that the devil cursed him to wander the world with no light except for a coal of fire. What Jack did was he wandered the world in darkness with this tiny little coal, and apparently he found a turnip that he had carved into a lantern. And so jack-o'-lantern was born. So, funnily enough, jack-o'-lanterns were traditionally carved from turnips, not pumpkins. So when did we go to pumpkins, you might wonder? Well, it's actually an American thing. You see, turnips weren't necessarily a very common vegetable in America in that time. However, pumpkins everywhere, especially during Halloween, or rather during the fall. So Americans were the one to adopt the idea of pumpkins turning into jack-o'-lanterns instead, which, you know, I will admit, I like the pumpkin a little bit more than the turnip. I think that the pumpkin is, for one thing, larger, so you can do a lot more things, but also the fun thing about the pumpkins are that so many things come from them. Like, you can eat the seeds, you can use the filling to make pie, there's a bunch of stuff. So I kind of vote for pumpkins in that realm. But, you know, maybe I'll carve a turnip one day. Would you carve a turnip? Tell me about that. Now we're getting to the point where we're really blacking out the canvas. So I did the face. So now what I want to do is I want to get all around, which actually, this is really inspiring me to do something else here. Guys, I might improvise something. Normally I go into this very prepared and very much like I know what I'm going to do, but I'm starting to kind of feel like I might change my plan here. Conjuring Canvases first. I changed my mind halfway through the painting. So, I don't get me wrong, like, I liked my original concept a lot, but this just randomly came to me as I was painting it, like, totally on accident, when I realized that I just kind of, like, started to fill in the background. I started to kind of realize that I was making a crescent moon shape, and I'll admit, I'm not very perfect when it comes down to moon shapes, but I kind of liked that, like, pseudo kooky, not really realistic type of vibe. So I'm making a crescent moon that's sitting in the middle, or rather sitting around our jack-o'-lantern face. I like it. I hope you do too. So, as I was saying, more Halloween facts and fun. So, what I was learning about Halloween as well is that, interestingly enough, Halloween has a lot of romance tied to it as well. You know, maybe the ghosts were just trying to find each other and, like, they just wanted to ask each other out on a ghost date. Hey, can I take you out for a soy latte on occasion? Yeah, that sounds good. It won't go right through me. Scottish girls used to do this thing where they would take sheets and wet them and place them in front of a fire, and as they would look into them, they would try to find images of who their future husband might look like. There was also another tradition that started with other women in that time where they would take an apple and they would peel it in one strip. After they were done peeling it, they would take the strip and they would throw it over their shoulder. So supposedly the strip would form into the shape of the first letter of whoever their future spouse's name was going to be. I thought that was kind of cute. Now, I'm sure all of you know about the game Bobbing for Apples, which actually began in colonial America, but that was a love game as well. The game would go where whoever could manage to pick up the apple in their mouth without using their hands first, if they did it first, they would be the first person to marry in their village. There was this other tradition where people would make what were called Halloween cakes. I guess they didn't really have another name for them, but what they would do is they would make these cakes and they would put a ring in the cake as well as a thimble. So if you sliced the cake and you got the ring in your slice, that meant that you were going to be married very soon. Or you were going to be very lucky in love. If you got the thimble, however, it was said that you were going to be unlucky in love. Like, that is so mean, whoever thought of that. I don't know who it was, but you're mean. When it comes down to decorating for Halloween, oftentimes we see the main colors, which are black and orange. Now, you know, other people go ahead and decorate in different colors too. Like, I would say that purple also constitutes as a Halloween color, as well as green. Any color could be Halloween if you know how to couple it really well. But primarily, when we think of Halloween, we're gonna think of the colors black and orange. So the reason why those colors were chosen was because black is the color of death or the end of a cycle. Meanwhile, the color orange looks like when the trees turn to fall. So when they start to have the leaves fall down, when there's browning of the earth, there's often orange that couples with it. And it is kind of like another meaning of it's a death in a way. But they are coupled together to create the official colors of Samhain, or the Halloween time. So I'm going to go in and I am going to finish up the moon here, which is actually pretty ironic because the last fact that I was going to share with everybody about Halloween was, and I did not plan this at all, by the way. Again, I have to tell you, like, this was it just happened to be kismet. Thing that I added into this painting. This was not my original vision. It said that full moons on Halloween are incredibly rare. Ironically, there's going to be one this Halloween. So if you're somebody who really loves full moons, that's a pretty fun fact. But why are they so rare? I don't really know about that, but I can tell you that before this coming full moon on Halloween, the last one was in 2001, so kind of far from right now, but before that, the last full moon on Halloween was in 1955. Guys, I know that 2020 has not been the funnest in the world, but you know what? The fact that there is a very rare moon going on Halloween, I think maybe is a good sign. Maybe it's something that we should all be excited about, and it's something to look forward to. So you know what? When you're finished handing out your socially distanced safe candy, if you do get trick-or-treaters, you know, or maybe you're at a Zoom Halloween party or something like that, take a look outside and look up at the sky and enjoy that, because that is the treat of 2020 Halloween. Oh my gosh, one more fun fact I discovered, which makes a lot of sense. During Halloween time, cats are often known to be sort of like a familiar or something that we commonly see in decoration, especially when we do decorate for Halloween. But cats were actually used in Halloween rituals for years, beginning with Samhain. So during the time of Samhain priests, they would actually use cats to use them for rituals in fortune telling. So oftentimes what the cats would do is they would set up an oracle, and if the cat walked over the oracle in a certain way, that would mean something for the coming year or the coming harvest. Speaking of fortune telling, bonfires were also a thing. So you were probably wondering where bonfire actually gets its name from. Well, bon actually is short for bones. So when priests would take fortune telling, obviously they had the cat to do fortune telling. What they would do is after they were done with their fortune, they would take the fortune and they would light a huge fire to represent the dying sun at the end of a hard winter. And when they would do those large fires, they would actually throw the bones of cattle into the fire, hence bonfire. I bet you were thinking that I was going to say they were throwing cat bones in there. No, man. No, the Celts love their cats. And it's funny because I myself am a little witchy, and I have always loved cats. I feel like cats have been my familiar. And I can tell you that if I can manage to make my cats actually talented enough to tell fortunes, well, we would have a blast, wouldn't we? Speaking of cats, let me introduce you to my little friend. This is Dita, the conjure kitty. Hey, hi, Dita. She just woke up from a nap, so you can tell she's really loving this. Hi, everybody. Oh my goodness, okay. She is clearly really loving this. Okay, I just wanted to show everybody that you're full of luck. She has had enough. Okay, bye. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna finish up my little bat nose. I'm definitely going to put in some oranges into the face just because I do want it to be like it is a pumpkin, as well as I want there to be some dimension when it comes down to there's a flame in there. Add a little bit of that, maybe just a tad bit of red before I get into the really fun, super surprise part of the painting. I'm probably gonna go in and clean it up too, really fix up the lines and such. But before we get into stories, I want to let you all know that it was all my intention to look for some interesting stories that have actually happened on Halloween or on Halloween night. Now, I'm curious to see if any of you have ever had anything interesting or odd or weird or creepy happen to you on Halloween. So if you have, as usual, leave it in the comments, or if it's really long and you want me to share it, feel free to email me at conjuringcanvases@gmail.com. I'd love to hear about what has happened to you on the best night of the year. What I decided was I was going to find a slew of stories that had to do with Halloween happenings. And it just so happened that I found an article by BuzzFeed. They are not sponsoring us, by the way, but BuzzFeed, if you like me and you think I'm cool, hey, I'm your girl. BuzzFeed made this article where it was true stories that actually happened on Halloween. I found it very interesting. So it's actually going to be a full narrative. There are a bunch of little short stories. Maybe
for this special Halloween episode, we are reading stories from an article titled 11 True and Truly Horrific Halloween Horror Stories. Number 1. The trick-or-treater who died after being given cyanide-laced candy. In 1974, 8-year-old Timothy O'Brien died on Halloween evening after eating candy laced with cyanide. But the story has an even more horrific twist. It turned out that the candy was poisoned by Timmy's own father, Ronald, who was in financial trouble and had taken out insurance policies on his children. In addition to Timmy, Ronald O'Brien gave poison candy to 4 other children, including his daughter, Elizabeth. Thankfully, none of them ate it. O'Brien was executed by lethal injection in 1984. Number 2. The suicide mistaken for a Halloween decoration. In 2005, a 42-year-old woman in Delaware committed suicide by hanging herself from a tree across the street from a residential area. Though the body was easily visible to passers-by and passing vehicles, no one called the police for hours. Why? They assumed the woman swaying in the wind was a Halloween decoration. Number 3. The man who showed up at a Halloween party dressed as Freddy Krueger and went on a rampage. A Halloween party in San Antonio, Texas, was in full force last year when a man dressed as Freddy Krueger showed up uninvited. He opened fire on the crowd, shooting 5 people. Number 4. The son who decapitated his mother and left her body in the street. One night in Long Island, just before Halloween 2014, a decapitated body laid in the street, 5 feet away from a severed head. To many passers-by, the horrific sight appeared to be a Halloween prank. But the truth was far more disturbing. 35-year-old Derek Ward had used a kitchen knife to kill and decapitate his mother, Patricia, then carried the body and head out of their apartment. After leaving the body and head in the street, Ward jumped in front of a commuter train, killing himself. Number 5. The unspeakable explosion at a holiday performance. In 1963, many hosiers decided to spend Halloween night at the Indiana State Fairgrounds Coliseum watching a Holiday on Ice skating exhibition. Unbeknownst to them, a rusty tank in the concession area began to leak gas. The room, which lacked ventilation, quickly filled with this deadly concoction. As the skaters performed their grand finale, the gas reached an electrical popcorn maker, triggering a huge explosion. 74 people were killed, and nearly 400 were injured. Number 6. The Japanese exchange student who knocked on the wrong door. 25 years ago, 16-year-old Japanese exchange student Yoshiro Hattori dressed up as John Travolta's character from Saturday Night Fever, then headed out to a Halloween party in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Tragically, he was mistakenly dropped off at the wrong house, and the homeowner, panicked by the unexpected visitor, shot and killed Hattori. The homeowner was later acquitted of any wrongdoing. Hattori's mother, Mako, commented on the 20th anniversary of her son's death, "I've been observing American society for the past 20 years. The ongoing situation there has been incomprehensible to Japanese. I want to encourage more ways to adopt gun control." Number 7. The assailant who, wearing the same mask that the killers wore in the film Scream, murdered a man. In Scream, killers wearing ghost face masks callously murdered the people of their own town. Chillingly, on Halloween night 2013, someone wearing the same ghost face mask shot and killed 19-year-old Anthony Seabury before disappearing into the New York night. Number 8. The Q Beach riot, where thousands of high schoolers fought police throughout Halloween night. In 1945, teenagers in Toronto spent Halloween night rioting and building large bonfires that they stoked with gasoline. When police descended upon the scene, the teenagers fought back, throwing rocks and blocking the fire department from putting out their fires. Soon, police arrested 14 of the rioters, but instead of calming things, this led to a mob of thousands of teenagers gathering in protest. The teenagers were only dispersed after being doused with water cannons and tear gas. The impetus of the uprising? is still unknown. Number 9. The man who opened his door to find a trick-or-treater who would end his life. In 1982, 69-year-old Marvin Brandland was getting ready for bed after a night of handing out Halloween candy when there was one more knock at his door. Brandland opened the door to find someone wearing a pillowcase over their head with holes cut out for the eyes. The figure said, "Trick or treat, give me your money or I'll shoot you." He then pulled out a gun and ordered Brandland into his basement where Brandland kept a safe. Brandland, figuring that it must have been a prank since only family members knew about the safe, grabbed for the gun. The person in the pillowcase fired, hitting Brandland in the throat, killing him. The killer fled, leaving only the pillowcase at the scene. In 2010, the pillowcase was tested for DNA, but there wasn't enough to make a match. Number 10. The haunted hayride employee who, when pretending to hang from the gallows, hanged himself for real. In 1990, Chicago area teenager Brian Jewell's job was to give hayride customers a scare by pretending to hang from the gallows. Jewell had pulled off the stunt just fine earlier in the day, but that night, something went terribly wrong. When the hayride approached Jewell, who was hanging from the gallows with his feet touching the ground, the tractor driver began to worry. The driver's worries only grew when Jewell failed to deliver his usual speech. According to the prosecutor, there was no signs of foul play. Number 11. The boy's life, who was forever altered on Halloween because of his stepfather from hell. On Halloween night in 1984, 8-year-old Brian Massey should have been enjoying a night of trick-or-treating with his sisters, Tiffany, 11, and Tamara, 10. Instead, he was subjected to a real-life horror film when his new stepfather, 26-year-old David Andrews, stabbed his mother to death before chasing his sisters down the hall and murdering them as well. Andrews then came into Massey's room, covered in blood, and kidnapped the boy. 2 days later, police found Massey alive after apprehending Andrews, who had tried and failed to kill himself. Disturbingly, Andrews struck a plea deal in exchange for a reduction of charges. He is eligible to be paroled next month, which the now 41-year-old Brian Massey vehemently opposes.
Everybody, I got so nervous when I took out the fire and I got the crayons ready. I was like, all right, never done this before. We're gonna do it. We're just gonna improvise. We're gonna figure it out. Halloween is gonna make it happen. And I think that we did a really good job. I really like it. It was definitely different from what my original concept was, but I think I like this a whole lot more. This is our Halloween painting, everyone. I hope that you love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you enjoyed those stories. Like, how crazy were those? I have to tell you, I think the scariest one to me was the one of the woman who was hanging in a tree. That was like, nobody called the police. Like, that's crazy to me. But I'm so happy that you tuned in and you watched our Halloween episode, our very first one of Conjuring Canvases. Please consider to like this video as well as subscribe and comment below to tell me what you think. And of course, when you see us next time, it will be in 1 month and it will be a brand new awesome episode. In the meanwhile, you can go ahead and follow me on Instagram at conjuringcanvases@gmail.com and look out on the channel for some brand new awesome content. Have a happy Halloween, stay safe out there, and remember, ghosties and ghoulies, never play alone, never play in a graveyard, and always say goodbye. Goodbye, ghosties and ghoulies, and happy Halloween.